I've been to war. It is the worst thing human beings can experience. Basically, my life's purpose after the military became finding a way to end war. So my hope is that Bitcoin can play a huge role in humans transitioning out of a society where war is still necessary. I do believe that Bitcoin is the foundation of a new culture, a new paradigm, a new way of living as a species on Earth. And I believe in its principles. Things are going to get worse before they get better. And what I intend to give everything I have to see become reality is that Bitcoin can play a pivotal role in the transformation of human society in the most peaceful manner possible.
Because over the last 100 years, the US dollar has lost 93% of its value. If you held your money in fiat currency over 90 years, you would have lost over 90% of its value. I don't know, I don't want to do that.
We don't need the Federal Reserve. It's built with corruption.
You're never 100% certain about very much. The one thing I am 100% certain about is fiat currencies will continue to debase. That's pure mathematics.
Monetary systems are broken. They don't serve me, they don't serve you.
All the cracks in the system are starting to show themselves. It's certainly a very turbulent time.
In my view, the Bitcoin white paper stands right next to the Declaration of Independence as a historically significant document defending freedom.
Bitcoin's really fascinating because I do love the fact that it pushes this narrative of self-sovereignty and is honestly probably a pretty key piece in growing civilization's understanding of self-sovereignty, but it's not the thing that led me to self-sovereignty. I believed in and was living a continually expanding understanding in my own life of self-sovereignty long before I actually adopted Bitcoin and got into Bitcoin. Through my time in the military, through my time in yoga, my experiences traveling the world, and my experience with van life, all of those things played pieces of a role in helping me expand my idea of how to live a life outside of, I guess, the rules and boundaries of today's standard society, like the narration of the way life is supposed to be lived. And at the end of that journey, I discovered the money that plays the pivotal role in helping, I believe, the rest of the world transition into that self-sovereign state.
What is Bitcoin?
Oh my God. What is Bitcoin?
It often seems like a solution without a problem. But of course, people that are paying more attention, I think, to the overall financial system, especially in developing markets, but even in advanced countries as well, knows that there's actually quite a bit wrong with the system that Bitcoin is potentially addresses.
Bitcoin is digital gold. It's a decentralized, digitally scarce asset.
No one controls it. It's fixed supply. It's only mathematics.
Bitcoin is specific to Bitcoin.org, the Bitcoin white paper. The founder pseudonym is Satoshi Nakamoto. A person or group of people published the Bitcoin white paper in 2009.
It's a new form of money that is better than every previous form of money. And that doesn't mean much when you don't understand what money is.
Money is a tool that represents human value. My time, my energy, my resources put into a tool that I am supposed to be able to understand when I exchange it with someone else.
It laid out what has become the most secure computing network in the world. And it did that as a way to establish, separate really money from the state, money from government, and can still preserve store of value, means of exchange, and a record of account. So true hard money, but digital.
If there's an easy way of producing something, over time, it's
value is going to decline because people will make more and more of it, and the value will continuously decline. So if it's hard to produce, on the other hand, there is a better chance of it maintaining its value into the future.
Bitcoin is in the process of obsoleting all other forms of money because of the credibility of its monetary properties, particularly because there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is easily able to divide and aggregate into larger or smaller units. Bitcoin really combines the property of finite scarcity, which I view as Bitcoin's true innovation. It's 0 to 1 innovation, with the ability to transfer that scarcity over a communication channel.
Skeuomorphic design is taking old technology and trying to fit it into a new paradigm. So when Henry Ford came out with the automobile mass market, people were afraid. They were still using horses and buggies. So things came out that were being sold called horsey heads. People could buy a horsey head, which is a wooden horse head. You stick it on the front of your car so you feel more normal.
Oh, really?
Right? It doesn't do anything for the car. It just makes it look like the old thing so you feel a little more comfortable. Right? So Bitcoin's the car. It is a brand new invention. It is singular. Digital scarcity gets invented once, and it's a path-dependent technology. Everything else that surrounds it, Ethereum, Cardano, all these other shitcoins, they're skeuomorphic design. They're taking aspects of the current financial system and adding blockchain or doing faster transactions or calling themselves decentralized when all they're doing is running on like Amazon Web Services or in fewer.
Bitcoin is the embodiment of personal responsibility. So if you're not humble, if you get cocky, that's where you tend to lose your money. That's when you tend to make mistakes. That's when you tend to take shortcuts with your security. And I've watched that happen to other people. I've made many mistakes myself. I've watched it happen to myself. And then the stack sats side is this idea of just accumulating Bitcoin over time without trading. And the key there is the sats as well, is sats are the smallest unit of Bitcoin. There's 100 million in a Bitcoin. So stay humble, stack sats is that distillation of all of those lessons I've learned and try and spread.
It provides everybody, regardless of race, color, or creed, the chance to participate in what I believe is the best asymmetric trade that I've ever seen in 32 years.
The culture of Bitcoin, you're gonna get me in trouble here because there's no predefined culture, or no two Bitcoiners are the same, and many would get angry if you try to lump us all in together. But I do think there is, and there are certain principles that many Bitcoiners are attracted to. Extreme ownership, self-responsibility, very anti-establishment, disenchanted by the status quo of the world, a nagging feeling that the world is going down a bad path, and that we need a forcing function to get us back on path. And many Bitcoiners, myself included, believe that Bitcoin is a mechanism to get us back on the right path.
Very toxic.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
I think everyone in this room is
super toxic. Yeah.
You can use Bitcoin without being a part of the Bitcoin community. Most people who use Bitcoin are not part of the Bitcoin community. And I think that speaks to the fact that while the Bitcoin community is welcoming, the Bitcoin system, the Bitcoin network, is the most inclusive one in existence. And you can be a terrible, terrible scammer that everyone in the Bitcoin community hates, and you can still access the Bitcoin network on completely equal terms as with the world's best Bitcoiner. And I think that's what makes Bitcoin magical.
I'm a pleb, okay? Let's be honest. I am a Bitcoin pleb, and proud of it.
So what is a pleb?
I don't know, but they tell me I'm one. I'm a plebiscite. Is that what it means? Like I'm like a pleb. It's like a small minnow in an ocean of potential whales. I'm just trying to do my part, and if you get all these minnows together, all of a sudden you're a pretty big force. That's what I think a pleb is.
The common person, I feel like I hang out with nothing but the plebs, right? A pleb is somebody who is trying to find his way through all this darkness that's happening in the world right now.
The pleb is the person who
works his ass off and creates real value in the world and is moving towards providing a real life for themselves through that hard work.
When people ask me, is Bitcoin a cult, is Bitcoin a religion, what I like to say is you have to flip the script and think about how you live your own life and how we as a society live our own life. I think you can't go through life without a belief system of some kind. It just depends on what your belief system is. So a lot of people believe in God. Me personally, I don't, but a lot of people believe in something. They believe in an economic system. They believe that our leaders want a better world and that they're working towards it successfully. That's also a cult in a way. That's a group of people that all believe something and are moving in one direction because they believe what they're doing will make tomorrow a better day. If that's what, if that's what a cult is, then yeah, Bitcoin's a cult as well. That doesn't mean that, what the people who call Bitcoin a cult, they're also in a cult. It's just much larger and has much more silent acceptance right now. But I think belief systems, if you want to call it a cult, it's a derogatory term for the same thing.
But we'll leave that to God, because I have a feeling God wants this to happen. Okay. There is no way God is not on our side to clean out all these parasites, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll take, God will have us on that side. Yeah, I carry it everywhere I go. These are dark times. These are biblical times. It's a crazy world out there.
So recently we were talking a lot about different religions and what features a normal religion would have. And we realized Bitcoiners and Bitcoin community kind of evolved with all of those as well. So the holidays, right?
Yeah.
What we got?
Pizza Day, White Paper Day, the day Satoshi disappeared.
Yeah. The Cheese Day.
Cheese Day.
Yeah, don't forget about this one. So we got our holidays, right?
Yeah.
And then we've got our own diet, just like Muslims have their traditional diet.
Catholics.
Yeah. We got our anti-seed oils and carnivore and just animal-based diet, let's say.
Just health conscious, really.
Yeah, and they have the common belief, which is we do. Fiat world sucks. Fix the money, fix the world. They have a hero, which is Satoshi for us. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we have our own Bible, the white paper.
Yep.
Outlines, what Bitcoin is, what it does for the people.
Just 8 pages, much easier.
Yes, much
much
easier to go through.
No, we're not
a cult.
But we're not a cult.
We're just a group of like-minded people that want to live better lives without the shackles of the fiat money system that we're currently in.
Although another funny feature, how witness of you, how do you say this? Witness of Jehovah?
What?
Jehovah? Yeah, that there's Jehovah Witness and
Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah. So there's Jehovah Witness who knock at your door and try to sell you on this. We're pretty much the same way.
Except we're just tweeting all the time.
No, the last time I was on this boat, I kind of solicited our captain.
True, yes.
And I was like, Captain, I'm going to tip you in Bitcoin and you have no choice.
Yep.
And he had to get a wallet. So you're part of a cult now, Captain.
I don't know much about Bitcoin or any of the crypto. Don't really follow it, have very minimal knowledge of any of it. For me, it just seems like a lot of work. Having to follow the market. I never really got into stocks or Bitcoin or any of those. So.
Did you keep the tip?
I still have it, yeah, absolutely. But don't know what I'll ever do with it or when, or how to even cash it out when it comes time.
Just hold it. You don't have to worry about doing anything.
As they say, the best time to get into Bitcoin was the first time you heard of it. The second best time is now.
Yep.
A great man once said, an idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any nation or any pandemic. And so Bitcoin is the idea whose time has come, and I want to thank all of you for being here to celebrate this movement. Bitcoin is the solution. Fix the money, fix the world.
Your laser eyes are pointed right at my brain right now. Are you stealing my private keys?
No, you should keep your private keys.
This should save me.
I see a world where 8 billion people have a mobile device and they have a digital wallet and they have a digital currency like a dollar or a euro, and then they have a digital asset, Bitcoin. And Bitcoin links together 8 billion people, links together 100 million companies. It synchronizes the world across political jurisdiction, and it returns rationality to the entire financial system, and it returns freedom and property rights to the human race. And I've never seen a critic say, I hate Bitcoin. I think that people in the rest of the world should buy, no one says they should buy Apple stock to save their life savings in Africa to avoid having it be stolen by the local government. Nobody says that. So if you don't give a constructive solution to the problem, then you're just reflexively rejecting a new thing.
The world is like fundamentally being overrun by deranged collectivists, statists, and central planners. And it doesn't matter if they're Democrat or Republican or socialist, communist, MMTist. It doesn't matter. What they are doing is they are trying to tear down what human beings have built over millennia. And they're trying to turn us into empty automatons like this.
Welcome to 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better.
Fundamentally speaking, Bitcoiners are here to change that. And not by replacing one set of rulers with another set of rulers, like what the shitcoiners are attempting to do, but by replacing these maniacs with a set of incorruptible, verifiable rules that are enforced at the level of the individual. And that's how we change the world.
Well, people today still question where Bitcoin's going. I would ask people to ask this question. When in human history has an innovation that has empowered people, a technology innovation that has powered people, been stopped by government? Broad range of people. And so through that, and it's never happened in human history, that technology innovation always finds its way through the market. And that's what's happening today on Bitcoin. And more people are realizing it. And so when does it break? When do we go through, and my hope is we don't go through a disorderly unwind. But I suspect there is going to be, winter is coming for the existing financial system one way or another. I wish that wasn't the case, but it is the case. My hope is more and more people will find Bitcoin because it'll serve as a life raft through what's coming as we transition to a new system.
People who are lucky enough to own a house feel that their house is going up in value. My response to that is, no, your house isn't going up in value. The unit of account called a fiat dollar is going down in value. If you measured your house price in gold, you would see that it's basically unchanged over the last 20 years. If you measured your house price in Bitcoin, well, it's not even close. I'm afraid your house price has gone down as measured in Bitcoin. Fiat is paper money backed by nothing. There is no gold. There's no intrinsic value to fiat. There was time when fiat paper money was backed by gold. Fiat, the purest form of Latin, in my opinion, means trust. But trust in what? Trust in the fact that central bankers will continue to debase or print more of this money?
The way we've farmed and ranched the last
50 years. We've destroyed our land with pesticides and herbicides, probably more than anybody wants to discuss. We've destroyed our cattle through GMO-based feed. Chemical companies have captured our agriculture, captured our ranchers in a way that's not discussed. And the only way that I see that we can survive feeding our communities, not trying to feed the world, because the only way you feed the world is feeding your community first. The only way we're going to get back to that is using the cow as a land tool. The ranchers becoming grass farmers again. Putting the time, the low time preference, high value, respect of the land, respect of the animal, respect of the nutrition, respect of the soil, respect of the tradition, and respect of the heritage in which got us here. Until we understand that, until we actually admit that is the problem, we're going to be chasing a fiat form of destruction that has gotten here. One thing about Bitcoin, and I tell this to everybody, is Bitcoin exposes the truth. Once you get into the Bitcoin rabbit hole, what you're doing is you're digging through all this deception. And once you dig through that deception, you get to the core values of what you believe. All of these grain elevators that we have now are shut down. They're nothing but basically monuments of the past. That never had to happen. That was not how this community was built upon. There's tons of these small communities, especially in this part of Texas, that were destroyed. And it was a form of, you ever see a small town die? It's depressed. It's a depression. Well, that town depression seeps into the depression of that individual, especially into a young boy's mind like mine was. And it pretty much pisses me off, to tell you the truth. And I'm gonna change it in the ways I can.
But I don't care. I don't have to go far. Hard Texas rain is gonna wash away everything, and the rivers will rise, and the winds will blow. Oh, but you know.
It feels like everything around us is still crashing. The whole fiat system feels like it's falling apart. That's obvious. But if you're a Bitcoiner, I don't know that things have ever felt better in Austin.
There's a hard Texas rain slapping the tin roof on this shack tonight. Oh, a hard Texas rain. There ain't a clear sky inside, but you know.
It's a snowball effect, and that people with a value set built around Bitcoin, and that when they see Bitcoin, they oftentimes want to work on Bitcoin. The best place to be is around other people building on Bitcoin.
Bitcoin mecca of the world is Austin because of the people that are here, but also the regulatory environment. We're in a place where we have largely a deregulated energy market, for example.
BitDevs is the once monthly meeting that they hold at Unchained Capital, and it is powerful.
And met Justin Moon, who's a Bitcoiner here, a developer, and he was hosting that meetup, and I suggested that we host it at Unchained. And we've been hosting that meetup for the last 3.5 years. From the first month that I joined Unchained, it has been the home of Austin BitDevs.
I've never cared for community in my life until a couple years ago. Like I generally stay away from, I don't like communities generally, but I got involved in Bitcoin, and you'd come to a room, every person you met was interesting and different, and you felt like you knew them your whole life sometimes, and I'd never had that feeling before.
If all you have is like high-level thinkers building this like computer thing, but you don't have people that are gathering and thinking about what the implications of that thing are, and they're not working on ways to like spread it out into their neighborhoods and to their family and to their friends, then like what's the point? And if all you have is the people doing this cultural side of things, but nobody's working on the development side of things, again, what's the point? So the idea for Austin Bitcoin Club, it didn't start as Austin Bitcoin Club. It didn't even start as an idea to like found a club. I reached out to a guy online, his name is Car Gonzalez, and I reached out to him. We started chatting, we started having a conversation. He helped answer some of my questions, and we just got into Bitcoin a little bit. I personally needed a place to just hang out with other Bitcoiners, and no one else was making it, so I made it myself.
All right, let's jump into it. We got a lot to talk about. We'll start with Clark's dashboard, as we always do. Like I mentioned, we've been hovering in the mid-50s range. We're at $56,390. One cuck buck's going to get you 1,773 sats. We're still over $1 trillion market cap at 1.07 trillion. We are currently at block height 712,267.
The Bitcoin rabbit hole is deep. I think that if you want to understand Bitcoin, you are inevitably going to have to go down a number of rabbit holes, at least for those brave early adopters. There's a podcast called The Rabbit Hole Recap, Marty Bent and Matt Odell.
Matt, will you stop texting? Will you join us in this conversation, please? What's going on? What is up, freaks? Welcome back to Tales from the Crypt. It's your boy, Marty Bent, here for Rabbit Hole Recap RIP. What's going on? It's a beautiful day here in Austin. It's noon on Thursday. We're doing it early because we have the Bitcoin block party here tonight in Austin.
You go down and question one assumption, and you keep going down next layer after next layer after next layer, because when you figure out that the question is really what is money, really the underlying foundation of all modern economies, this commodity we call money, that you start to then question every assumption, because most assumptions are all built on top of the very function of money. And as people realize that they never really understood that, then they start thinking about all sorts of things.
Big week, as always. Yeah. We got Square changing names.
We got Jack leaving Twitter.
Jack leaving Twitter, forgot to mention that. That's pretty big.
Bitcoin is definitely a movement. It's a movement to undermine the state control of money. Money has been something that the state has controlled for quite a while now. I think since the advent of fiat currency around World War I or so. And that has changed everything. The fact that we can have our own currency, a currency that is apolitical, that is outside the control of the state, that is a movement. And that is, in many ways, a revolution without guns or bloodshed. And that is something that we should be very thankful about, because it is a monetary revolution.
I'm Lynn Ulbricht. I'm CEO of FreeRoss.org, and I'm Ross Ulbricht's advocate and his mother.
He was a young, peaceful, first-time offender serving a double life prison plus 40 years. The guy has been condemned to rot in prison for setting up a website called Silk Road. And there were people selling drugs on there, and he probably knew that was happening. But the people who were selling drugs on there who got convicted are already out of prison.
The true crime was that Ross put Bitcoin on the map. Ross introduced it to the mainstream because the entire site, the only means of exchange, was Bitcoin. And before Silk Road, very few people had heard of Bitcoin. It was a plaything for geeks.
He was an Eagle Scout, but Ross was never prosecuted for causing harm or bodily injury, and no victim was named at his trial.
He saw Bitcoin and he said, this is radical power for the people. We can take this idea, we can apply it and make real the libertarian, freedom-based ideas that I believe in.
He doesn't claim that he was innocent. He knows now that it was a crime. He's asking for clemency. He's asking for his sentence to be commuted. And, he's got a college degree. He could be a productive member of society. And so I would like, hopefully, the executive branch to look at this case.
I think a lot of it also was Ross's philosophy of non-aggression, but open source, because the judge herself said in sentencing, "We know you started the site for philosophical reasons." The philosophy was based on the non-aggression principle of voluntary interaction, and that adults could choose what they bought and sold as long as it didn't hurt someone else. So, for instance, there was no child pornography allowed on the site because that hurts children. There was no stolen property permitted because that hurts the legitimate owner. There were no violent services and so on. And she said this philosophy was very troubling and dangerous. She said she knew that's why he started the site, not to be a drug kingpin, not to be El Chapo, who, by the way, got half the sentence Ross got, but that it was his philosophy. And she said it was a dangerous and troubling philosophy. Now, last I looked, we're not supposed to be caged, especially for the rest of our lives, for our philosophy in America. And yet, the judge herself said that that is what she was basing it on, essentially.
For embarrassing the state and showing the state as, let's say, impotent, they've put him in a cage for the rest of his life. He is a political prisoner being held by the state as a lesson to us all that we ought to be afraid, that we should, we shouldn't act on our principles. We shouldn't do things that defy them, or they will lock you away for the rest of your life just to send a message.
Bitcoin was a threat to very powerful people, and I think that that's what got their attention. It's very obvious to me, it became obvious, that it wasn't about drugs, because the biggest drug seller on Silk Road got 10 years and got out in 7. He's out. I'm determined that he will not be forgotten. I just can't live with thinking that he would be, die in there, rot in there, and be forgotten. And it's just not acceptable.
Ross is Bitcoin's first political prisoner, and the Bitcoin community owes it to him, owes it to ourselves to get him out of jail.
Ross always says, where there's life, there's hope. And yes, I have hope. We've come close, and I think we can do it again. I need help. I need all the support we can get, but I do have hope. It's just people and paperwork. It's just the signature of one person, the president, to do this. People do it. It happens. And so, yes, I am hopeful. I won't ever give up hope. I won't give up hope.
One of my goals is to basically get every cattle rancher that does local production and processing in the future for communities, providing that protein to everybody, was to get these cattle producers on the Bitcoin standard. I found a cattle rancher outside of Austin. He's right on the city limits of Austin. From his ranch, you can see downtown Austin. I thought that was fascinating. He does regenerative farming. He's a professional team roping cowboy. And so we hit it off pretty well. I went out there, I met him, I shook his hand, I looked him in his eye. It's K&C cattle, and his name is Cole. And we had a discussion, and then he told me everything about his ranch. He drove me around his ranch. I saw how he raises his cattle, the regenerative way that he does it, how he basically uses the land, and how his cattle is some of the best protein you can find there in the Austin and the Hill Country area. I asked him, I said, would you be interested in getting on the Bitcoin standard? Well, he's in banking as well, and he said, I see the benefits of that. I see the benefits of being decentralized in the way that I can process these payments. And so he jumped on board. And so basically in the state of Texas, he was the first cattle ranch to adopt the Bitcoin standard and accept Bitcoin as a form of payment.
You know, a lot of this, as you go into regenerative, your mindset changes. You're not looking at what can each cow make. What I'm looking at is how much profit can each animal give me per acre.
Right.
And that's where you have to focus more heavily on actually farming versus just the ranching side of it. The ranching community's been a little slow to accept Bitcoin at first because it's an unknown. It's technology that we don't understand. I've been fortunate. I'm in Austin, so I'm kind of the hub of Bitcoin, and so I've had great guys really advise me and guide me through the process and the technology. But I think as more and more get the opportunity to really control inflation costs and other things associated with that, we'll find more and more producers jumping on the Bitcoin bandwagon.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing as far as what we've run into, both you and I, talking to ranchers and Bitcoiners, is the rancher understanding the why that Bitcoin's important. You know, that type of store value that we can actually bring to their lifestyle and to their legacy that they're trying to maintain. I mean, that's all you're doing really, is really maintaining the legacy of what you were taught.
Pretty much,
And
all
that's
the way through.
Whenever I first started the beef initiative, I called it the Texas Beef Initiative.
Right.
That made a lot of sense. You and I kind of meeting and having the conversations, and now that we've partnered up, we both understood that the beef initiative is basically the brand. You know, the brand of what we're trying to do to push through everybody. We want all the producers coming in through the beef initiative, and we want everybody to know that, you know, to come through the beef initiative is going to follow a protocol that K&C Cattle has established.
My home is right here in Texas. This is what I can serve best, and this is my demographic. But we want to see producers in Colorado, California, New York, Florida, the Midwest, everywhere, and hopefully we really continue to spread this worldwide. And I think if more and more folks will support their local economies, their local ranchers, we're all going to prosper as one local community, which to me is exactly what Bitcoin stands for.
Why don't you go get your cattle, Cole?
Yeah, we'll see. We can make that happen.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? How Bitcoiners are more interested in having more kids because, you know, fiat nature is all about the rat race. We keep our savings in a better asset, which means that if we work hard now, we put our savings in Bitcoin, maybe one working parent is possible again, and the mother can actually stay home with kids, not put them in the daycare when they're 6 weeks old, actually enjoy the time, bond with the baby, which will definitely cause less mental health issues, less arguments between kids and parents. It's definitely going to make it much easier on both parent and a child. So I'm happy to see that for sure.
Yeah, and not only are people trying to kind of deal with the 9-to-5 change to their desk lifestyle, but now they're, having to not compete, but like go against what the narrative they're trying to push of, save the environment, don't have kids, don't have all this carbon being pushed out into the earth that's killing the earth. These little things don't kill the earth.
Yeah.
I want to have as many carbon children as possible.
What was your first pet's name?
What was the name of your favorite teacher?
What was your father's maiden name?
Cool. All right, plebs, it's time for the march. Let's take over Rainy Street.
Congrats, it's a Bitcoin standard as of today.
Thank you.
Woo!
Freedom! Woo!
The whole thing with the Bitcoin Block Party is about building community. It's about supporting your local businesses. Here we are now, we have 9 food trucks here, a bar across the street. They're all accepting Bitcoin. Like, this is what it's all about. It starts small. It starts going door to door. Every single time we swipe a card, that's costing that business, 2.6% or more if it's online. That money is floating away to Wall Street. It is leaving your community. Local spending creates community wealth, and Bitcoin protects wealth communities create. Instead of sending it away, we're keeping it here. We're giving it back. That's really what it's all about.
Some people want free money, and that's different. And there's a lot of free money circulating out there these days, and it's all fake, and it's all political corruption that goes in, and the free money means they either print it or steal it, and it doesn't work. It makes the country poorer no matter how many people get richer in the meantime. And they have to use a system called the Federal Reserve System for distribution. And you do know that if you know anything about me, and I've been in politics for a couple years, that I have a solution. You know, one of my solutions for foreign policy was, you know, when we were in places we shouldn't be in, they said, well, how can we do it? What should we do? I said, we just marched in, let's just march out.
There's a quote that says, war is worse than hell because everybody who's in hell deserves to be in hell. But everybody who finds themselves in war doesn't necessarily deserve to be there. Children are casualties of war, mothers are casualties of wars, brothers and sisters are casualties of war. Is literally like the worst thing that anybody can experience, and I wish that more than anything on no one. By the age of 25, I was a raging alcoholic. I drank 7 nights a week. I was majorly abusing anabolic steroids. I was at the gym for like 5 or 6 hours a day on average, just like straight Hulk mode. Just like it was like one of the best places I could just take all of my aggression and just channel it into something. And it was not productive. It didn't help. Like it broke me even further. My body didn't work at 25 years old. I couldn't walk up the stairs without pulling myself up a railing. I couldn't throw a tennis ball at the dog park for my dog because I literally could not put enough pressure on my right leg to like throw the ball. Like the amount of pain that was associated with just standing up was physically killing me. I was holding on to my past, and in holding on to my past, I was unable to live in the present. I was trying to pretend that the things I had done, the things I had thought, the person I had been, I was trying to pretend that none of that happened. And in so doing, I basically put all of that in a box and I held on to it. And the longer I ignored it, the longer I held on to it. And the longer I held on to it, the more problems I found myself having, the more resentful I became, the more angry I became, the more upset I became. Traumas from my early childhood all the way through the severity of the trauma of Afghanistan and time at war, and mostly, I will say mostly from my time at war. There was a moment in particular on the edge of my bed at 25 years old where I was having suicidal thoughts. I mean, not the first time, but like the most profound of them, probably. And I had that little voice return, and it was just like, hey man, maybe you should just try anything different. My past doesn't define my present. I have thought, have been, have done terrible things. And the only way I could become a better human being was to make peace with that and to start living now. To stop living in the past and to start being who I am now. So, yeah, I was fucked up, but like holding on to that fucked up only made me more fucked up. So it was just like time to say, I'm sorry, to the larger just metaphysical space, just to like, I'm sorry to anyone and everyone that like I had ever hurt including myself. And then that was really the beginning of a new chapter in my life. The idea of the tattoo on my back is a tribute to the friends I lost in Afghanistan. Soldiers with like some demons and the Reaper and the thought process of yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And it is a tribute tattoo to friends I lost in Afghanistan.
Bitcoin is gonna save America, like in a very literal way. Fiat money is corrupt. And I don't wanna use it anymore. I don't just wanna talk about it, I don't wanna use it anymore.
The kind of parasitic elite have stolen value from us on a daily basis through taxation and inflation and literally now just like freezing bank accounts, stealing money directly from the people. And I think people have had enough of it.
For people under a certain age, there's this deep sense of institutional betrayal because most of our institutions have become pathological and they don't really work for us anymore. They don't reflect people. There's a big lack of trust. There's a breakdown in trust. And Bitcoin is a system that seeks to remove human fallibility so that you don't have these same breaches of trust, right? Like Bitcoin is essentially a perfect machine that produces truth. And it's interesting to know, like, you know, humanity never really had a perfect machine before, but we have one now because we took humanity out of the equation.
If you taxed 100% of all the companies in the US in 2019, taxing everything, every profit that every company made, it would be $2.25 trillion. Yet $5 trillion was printed in 2020. So you can't start to pay back. We have a problem that is so big that most of government's revenues is hidden in inflation. And inflation is just a theft, but it's a theft on the middle class and poor that they don't realize is happening.
A lot of Bitcoiners like to use the meme of the Matrix to kind of describe themselves as waking up to the reality of how the system works and what the tools are against it. And so obviously for many of them, the answer is Bitcoin, to opt out of a very convoluted system that's kind of stacked against them into something that's programmed, that it's scarce, that it's not governed by anyone. No one is pulling the levers in various ways trying to control the system. And so you have just a hard money system that can be self-custody, that can be sent without anyone's permission.
Basically, the more people we have who are pissed off about the current economical system, the more people will start looking into Bitcoin.
We've talked about this. I feel like COVID it actually served in our benefit way more than it did in theirs, because people woke up to the realization of how they're trying to be manipulated and put into this box of you will owe nothing and you'll be happy, and that's not what people want.
Yeah.
The Great Reset.
We have to prepare for a more angry world, and I see the need for action. I see the need for a Great Reset. Why not to tie government aid to the green economy which we have to create?
God, the Great Reset is a power grab unlike anything humanity has ever seen. You have this amorphous entity of power brokers throughout the world, represented by the World Economic Forum, the Davos class, people like to call them. The incumbent power structure is attempting, again, to cattle herd us into this dystopian future that will be based on central bank digital currencies and top-down granular control of the global economy.
Probably the biggest thing I worry about right now is a central bank digital currency that comes in and is, frankly, the creepiest surveillance tool known to man. I mean, it literally, the only way you could buy, sell, move value in our economy would be with the permission of the state, with the surveillance of the state.
Central bank digital currencies could be a digital version of money, a bit like a digital banknote that could be used alongside physical notes and coins. Unlike most of the digital money people use daily today, it would be issued directly by a central bank, like the Bank of England in the UK.
In cash, we don't know, for example, who's using
a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that.
Our shared objective is to ensure that CBDCs will be grounded in long-standing commitments to transparency, the rule of law, and sound economic governance.
We think that there are 4 characteristics of, if we were to pursue a CBDC, it would at a minimum have the following 4 characteristics. First is intermediated. Second is privacy protected. The third is identity verified. So it would not be anonymous. It would not be an anonymous bearer instrument. And fourth is transferable or interoperable. So we would be looking to balance privacy protection with identity verification, which has to be done, of course, in today's traditional banking system as well.
If we are not involved in experimenting, in innovating in terms of digital central bank money, we risk losing the role of anchor that we have played for many, many decades. And we have historical examples of period where the central bank monetary anchor was not there, and that precipitated crisis after crisis. That certainly was the case at the time of the free banking in the 19th century. Do we want to go back to those days? Probably not. I would say certainly not from our vantage point, as a result of which we have to respond to the demand for those digital payments in order to maintain the role of anchor that we have been playing regularly.
However, we can go the way that whether it was an individual or a group of people, Satoshi Nakamoto put out in the Bitcoin white paper, that protects freedom, that really decouples money from the state. And why is that so important? Because money has become the tool the state is using as coercion. And we have to get a system that allows the principles of cash. If we're going to defend freedom, we absolutely have to defend sound money.
It turns into a very dystopian future that you're already kind of getting a taste of when you see things like in China, where people are surveilled doing everything they do, where they're cut off from the financial system.
It's called the social credit system, and in one version now being tested, a person's reputation is scored on a scale of 350 to 950. And it's big data meets Big Brother, expanding how the government monitors, understands, and ultimately controls its 1.4 billion citizens. Scores are docked for things like littering, a messy yard, gossip, even jaywalking. Video of offenders is shown on the local news. Being discredited makes it hard to get a job or put kids in top schools.
Humans will opt for freedom. The long arc of human history has trended towards freedom and more human flourishing. The Great Reset would take us in the opposite direction, but luckily we have Bitcoin and other open source technologies that will ensure that we live free in the digital age.
Bitcoin is the nonviolent protest that every person can do. Every person can make a moral decision to support in order to defund the power that pays for all those things that they're against. So if they want to end the wars in the Middle East, Bitcoin is their solution. They want to end, if they're part of whether it's Occupy Wall Street or the Tea Party movement, their frustrations that they have, Bitcoin is their outlet in order to actually do something about those problems. So, fix the money, fix the world. Money is the source of all of those ills. It's, money is the root of all evil. Really it's control over the money. That is the root of all evil. And the only way to solve that is to give up control.
I think if every Bitcoiner were to just go out and buy 5 acres and live out in the middle of nowhere by themselves and do nothing more to work on Bitcoin or build on Bitcoin or create the base layer systems that transition us out, we'd all be screwed. Because if the collapse happens today, Bitcoin's not ready. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it is not prepared to take over global commerce tomorrow morning. If the collapse happened tonight, some group of people somewhere needs to be actively building together in a city trying to create the foundational layer that transitions us out of the system we're in now into the new system. From my own life experiences, including in the military, that when a civilizational collapse happens, if it happens, it will not really be where you're at that matters most, but who you're surrounded by that matters most. And in my mind, getting as many like revolutionary thinkers, freedom fighting, sovereign individuals together in one location, organized, is one of the most powerful things you can do for like the survival and safety of that group of people and for each individual.
People are kind of waking up to the idea that through a truly uncensorable monetary asset, we can return to kind of retaking control of our own lives. And I believe for me, that's what the moniker of pleb really means. And that is what Pleb Lab is trying to do. Pleb Lab is trying to reimagine the way an accelerator program works. Pleb Lab is trying to reimagine the way companies get built. And it's doing it through this pleb-driven movement. We have a bunch of really brilliant engineers and a lot of really brilliant founders. We've basically just got a space where friends get together and kind of try to help one another succeed. It is a business, but it is the business of helping your community grow alongside one another on a daily basis.
How's the MVP coming? We got that up yet?
No,
Well,
I can't
see
get that up until
the bank stuff.
the bank stuff.
Yeah, we got to get the bank stuff. Then we're going to get the MVP turned on.
Okay, well, why?
Because without a bank, they can't pay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And we don't rush things, and I'm already seeing that like this March 3rd meetup is not going to be the one. But, I mean, he doesn't even have the MVP turned on, and are we going to get a bank ready to go and get the MVP turned on and have the time to preemptively start putting out a small little snippet here, a small little snippet here, and having like a good fucking pitch and pitch deck and presentation and all of this ready to go by our first launch at Bitcoin Commons?
How many weeks is March 3rd? Give me how many days?
2.
How many days?
It's
14 days?
it's-
We're Bitcoiners. We just go and fucking do our thing.
Right.
But
Again, our thing is getting people what they need. So
my co-founder, Car Gonzalez, is, well, at this point, one of my best friends. Sometimes I want to strangle him to death, but that's like maybe 10% of the time, and I'm fairly sure that's just the way that business works. I'm not alone. I know for a fact that Car has wanted to strangle me a handful of times as well.
In 14 days.
we can talk about it.
I have a music background, so I've had a lot of bands growing up in my 20s, and so when you're creating cool shit, when you're creating great art, and I firmly believe this, you have to have tension in the room. You have to be willing to fight for your ideas to win. If you look at anything that's ever been created in the world that was worth a damn, it was because there was really talented individuals that had to come together and had to work together to make that happen. It's really on us. To be honest with you, it's a lot on us.
It's really not on y'all. It's the payment processor.
Well, yeah.
That's it.
We're gonna save everybody. Like that's my mission, is to save my backyard. I can only focus on my city. I want to save everybody, but there's a great quote by Tupac Shakur. He says something to the likes of, "I may not be the person that changes the world, but I will be the spark for the brain that does." And I always thought that was like the best quote I ever heard. And that's all I need to be. I just need to be taking care of my city, taking care of like what I'm doing in my town, and just kind of lead by example.
I think we just need to come up with like
a new term,
100% new term for what you're creating, because you literally are creating something new.
It is our belief that that pleb standard I just outlined, where people actually wake up and produce things of real value and create things of real value and do hard work, those people need new ways of networking. We need new systems of creating the kind of systems that we all operate under.
We need a good tagline though, because it's like
Bitcoin for everyone.
That's lame, dude. Everybody knows Bitcoin for everyone. That's just like a
Bitcoin tagline.
I don't know. It's something like that. It's something around there, though.
I gave a couple of
I think you said it the
suggestions.
other day to me. I just don't remember what it was. It was something around there. We were just kind of talking, and you spit it out, and I was like, oh, that's it. That's the light. And then you like literally, and I was like, and I don't remember what it was.
Write it down. It wasn't like everyone can be Michael Saylor.
We don't need to be at the finish line, is what I'm trying to say. We just need to get there close enough so somebody else, a fellow pleb, can take it the rest of the way.
Here's the thing. I don't know all the acronyms and lingo, just like if you came to the ranch and there's certain terms that we use, right? They'd be like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, as far as how a transaction works, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the beauty of your knowledge. I mean, you do understand the financial system. And
You want me to shoot it in the back?
In the back, 'cause I got points.
No, that's fine. That's fine. You're good to go. It's 30 pounds even.
I got it. So we sell oxtails, so he basically supplies the oxtails for us at a really affordable price because it's probably about $5 a pound more if we go someplace else. And I'm actually local. I live like 5 minutes away. And so this is really convenient for me as well. So yeah, he's good people. I don't know much about Bitcoin, but I set up businesses. And a lot of my customers are now calling to set up companies for Bitcoins. And they're also even giving me suggestions on which ones to purchase. And so that's the first, as far as my knowledge goes. But I am going to look into it more. I just haven't had time yet.
The only reason I'm doing this is to save children's lives. When you leave here today, you go out there and you find those children that you're gonna save. They need it. They need this education, but they need clear-minded, clear-thinking, intentional adults that have basically a meaning in life, to basically be sovereign, to be free-thinking. We're not gonna accept shitty food anymore. We're gonna demand it. We know the truth, and this is how we're gonna move forward.
I thought I'd miss Capital Factory more. I don't really miss it at all. It was an awesome place to build a company for a year. And I made a lot of good friends and I learned a ton about business. But pretty stoked to have our own space. And yeah, I mean, it is significantly larger. Right? It's like almost 18 times bigger than the original Pleb Lab inside of Capital Factory.
Pleb Lab is expanding into phase 2. That's kind of what you're looking at here is I've raised enough money to get a space, expand the model, and prove that what I said we could build, we could build. So me and the team have been actively working to do that. Are the stakes raised? I'm not really sure. Once I raised a little bit of money, we kind of went immediately into the correction in the bear market. I put my head down and I built.
I mean, we put our first sign up. It's a now hiring sign. And I kid you not, the day we put it up, we have had applicants drive in, call in. Monty's been getting calls at 10 and 11, midnight at night for people trying to apply for jobs. So it's been...
Have you had any Bitcoiners come apply for a job yet?
No, not yet.
They're
Not
gonna
yet.
come. But if you're a Bitcoiner and you want a job out here, it's called Farm Tough is what you gotta be.
Well, signage will be here hopefully next week. Hometown meat market, USDA processing, all natural, beef. I forgot what the fourth one is.
Right.
But,
So it's going to be big.
Yeah, it's huge. We've seen so much markup in retailers, but by being able to control this input cost, it will have significant changes in what we can provide to people.
Yeah. This is what they call the bottleneck.
Every time.
And this is why this starts with the nutritional starvation. This is where nutrition gets depleted. This is where you get 25 touch points with all of your food that you consume from the supermarket.
Yeah.
This eliminates all of that. And actually, what does it do? It hires your margins, it hires your profits, and it hires your value to where you can have a new store value.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're a Bitcoin rancher.
That's right.
Tying Bitcoin into our food supply, a decentralized pure animal protein that is community-based, is that Bitcoin is going to get innovated by the great American rancher. Yeah. And then beyond just the American or Texas rancher, beyond the American rancher, this is going to hit globally because everything that we're doing here is scalable. Yeah. Everything that you're doing right here is scalable. Everything that we're doing in the Beef Initiative is scalable. We build locally, we broadcast globally. And that's how we make the change that we want to be. That's how we become the movie. That's how we basically innovate during times of mass prohibition.
That's exactly right. Boots on the ground and busting your butt. I have the Bitcoin community reach out all the time, or especially here recently, like, man, Bitcoin crashed. How are you handling it? I'm like, man, try being in ranching. This is every day. We're in the middle of a drought. Commodities went the other direction. Cattle market is extremely volatile. Consumers are slowing down on how much they're spending on food. What's a downturn in Bitcoin?
Yeah.
It's just a small piece of the puzzle of what I get to see every single day. So I look at it, let's be bullish. Mm-hmm. Let's build. Let's be prepared for that bearish market.
I'm not worried about Bitcoin. I think there's definitely things that are like worth thinking about. It's like nothing is guaranteed in life, but it's really, really, really fundamentally quite sound. Low price action, bear market. I don't know what you want to call it. It is a sign, in my opinion, of a healthy correction. It is a liquidation / demolition of all of the degeneracy happening in other spaces in the crypto space in general. I think it's healthy. I also haven't been paying attention to it. So to like really get deeply involved in the narrative or kind of try to break it down even further or to discuss how I feel about it, it's kind of not something I feel anything about. It's honestly almost kind of been a blessing for Pleb Lab in general. It's just kind of re-established the idea overall in the builder space of kind of heads down and build. This is what they meant by bear markets are for building. Most of us are in Bitcoin as an asset for the long term, and none of us are really fazed by the short-term positions of lower price action. Yeah. So bear markets are for building because fundamentally you have to prove yourself a bit more in a bear market than you do in a bull. You don't like buy a Toyota and go out and tell people all about your Toyota like it's some kind of special thing. It's like you bought a new car. I bought a new car. I've said for many, many years without having a car that I was going to save up and wait until I could afford a Tesla. Getting ready to propose, and we're kind of like sharing bills and responsibilities at this point. She needed something to do for work, moving last minute from kind of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Austin, Texas. With the schedule that she's gonna have for a while due to the fact that she's gonna be in Austin mostly, but still going back to Pittsburgh to see her girls, her like schedule for employment is really difficult. So it was either finding something remote work, or the idea I came up with was driving Uber. So we bought a car and she's gonna use the car for work. It's put me in like kind of like a tight position financially. Like I am good at budgeting, I like budgeting,
I like work really hard to make my money work for me. And we've taken on a new apartment complex. We've taken on a new car. I just bought an engagement ring and a wedding band. So we've taken on a lot of huge financial kind of debts very recently, but I still have my Bitcoin nest egg. I have cash flow coming in. I'm paying myself through the company, and I still have my VA military disability. I mean, we've done the math over and over and over again, and between the two of us, we're able to make it work. So we got something that I've been working towards for the last 6 years.
We actually met well, it's a funny story, dude. And then I said I live in a FedEx truck, and she got real excited. She's like, what? She's like, oh my God, I could totally see myself doing that. She's like, we could just like drive out into the wilderness in Montana and just like disappear into nature. And I started thinking to myself, like, man, who is this girl? I need to know more. This is where it gets interesting. We're like sitting at dinner. It's going great, having a great time. We start talking a little bit about our past. She tells me she worked at Starbucks. And I was like, oh, really? Like, when was that? Oh, about 6 years ago. And I thought to myself, I didn't say anything out loud, but I thought to myself, I'm like, you suddenly seem more familiar. And then I told her I used to work at Starbucks 6 years ago. She looks over at me and she's like, do you want to hear something crazy? And I was like, yeah, sure. She's like, I'm pretty sure you gave me your phone number 6 years ago when we worked together at the Peter store for a week. And I was like, no shit. I remember that. Like, purely on happenstance, asked her out a second time, and she said yes, so. We have known each other, yes, for a very short window of time. That being said, it's not like anything I've ever experienced before. Like, I thought I had fallen in love before. I was incorrect. And I personally am like a very intense guy. I like something or someone, and I don't really like dip my toes in the water. I'd kind of dive head first. And I've had a historic problem where I basically scare people away. I like, especially romantically, I go so head over heels so fast that most people are like, yo, what is wrong with you? And they kind of disappear. And this woman was the first one who not only didn't run away, but she kind of like leaned into my crazy and was like super into it. And it was 2 weeks after that that I flew back to Pittsburgh to meet her kids. I called her the other day when her 2 kids were home, and I basically asked her 9 and 12-year-old daughter if they would mind if I married their mom. They both gave me the seal of approval, and now she lands here tomorrow morning for an 8-day visit. I've got the engagement ring and the wedding ring. She has my wedding ring. We've started talking about having children. We've picked out baby names. Like, it has all moved at an insanely fast pace, but it's just like so fun and enjoyable, and it's really honestly been something out of a book or a movie, man.
I wasn't expecting a birthday party, but
Oh my God.
would you marry me?
Yes.
You're a woman that makes me happier than any other I've ever met. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Good days, bad days, cleaning dog poop. Put it on.
I want you to put it on. You're shaking while you drop
I'm
that.
shaking.
Of course. You got this.
My vision of how this plays out is that in the next 10 years, we entirely shift over to a Bitcoin standard. That's hard for people to see, but I do believe that that is happening a lot quicker, and it's not isolated to Bitcoin. It is because the underlying economic structure is becoming more and more unstable, and they're having to print more and more money to keep it intact. But that in the future, Bitcoin will be the unit of count. It won't be volatile. You're just going to go to the grocery store and you're going to pay for things directly in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to price cattle. It's going to price oil. It's going to price natural gas. I think that there are going to be a lot of lessons learned that that when we all grew up, people did not learn about what is money. Again, I made that point. We all take money for granted because it always has just worked. Most people have never in school like had a class that was like, what gives the dollar value? If they did, people would say it's a hallucination, it's a belief system, or because the government taxes people, which is not the case. That it's an objective evaluation of goods in the market. So I think that it's going to fundamentally alter, that this is going to be such a radical change, and Bitcoin is going to win. And that's not something I do want that, but that is something that is objectively going to happen because there are true things in the world. Money is a basic necessity. You can't store your value in a form of money that can be printed, and there is a better alternative, and it's voluntary and you can opt in, but those who opt in later are going to get dragged along because everybody needs money. The consequence of that is I have no worry that the next generation and the next and the next, for the next 100 years, they're going to be reading about what happened, and the winners are going to write that history. Now, could humans screw it up in 500 years or 1,000 and forget those lessons? Yeah, but I think that that's probably true. One of the things that Saif Dean wrote about the Bitcoin standard was how Rome fell and the debasement of currency. We forgot those lessons. So it is possible, but I don't think that it's possible in anything that we would consider a long time horizon. It would be, like the event horizon.
What if we're wrong? What if Bitcoin fails?
I can't see how we're wrong, but if we are, it was a hell of a ride. I'm still enjoying everything. Even if we're very wrong, it was so fun. It still is fun. It gave a different perspective to me for life, and I'm gonna stick with that.
Yeah, I don't like to envision a future in which Bitcoin fails because it is a very dark future. It's not gonna be good.
If we're all wrong about Bitcoin, Bitcoin is still an idea that I deeply believe in, and I'd rather go down swinging, essentially. Like, I'd rather push my chips into something that I believe in and allocate capital on those terms rather than allocate capital to a bunch of things that I don't believe in and live in a world that I'm not in deep alignment with. So I think if we're wrong, it was a valiant effort, and even if we failed while daring greatly or something, right? But to be honest, I don't think we're wrong. I think we're right.
Bitcoin, by its nature, how it works and how it throws a mirror in the face of the traditional system and traditional monetary system and how we run our markets, forces you to have personal responsibility and to take charge of your own life and to make it better. And I think that's really the crux of how Bitcoiners are going to get to this future, by taking personal responsibility, by taking initiative, by working with others to build the future that you want to see.
I would rather invest all of my time and money into Bitcoin and it go to zero and at least have tried to have been a part of something where it would change the world and give freedom to 8 billion people in the world than not even try.
I'm not going to answer that question. It is not going to fail. There's not a chance in hell it's going to fail because it's based on truth. And truth always wins.
Stay humble and stack sats. No, I didn't do that, to be honest. I thought I was doing that, and in hindsight, I failed miserably. What's happened since then? Let's see. I no longer drive a Tesla. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and my now fiance and I have a baby together. Outside of Bitcoin, I'm working selling cars. The FedEx truck, there was no real emotional connection. It had just been sitting idle for the better part of a year. I ripped out all the necessary stuff, and by the time I got rid of it, I was just glad to be rid of it. Sold, gone, never think about it again. The Austin fame, if you will. I mean, walking around the streets and having random people at coffee shops while you're on a date interject themselves into your date to tell you they know who you are and to shake your hand and say thank you, and people walking across crosswalks as you are, yelling at you that you're a legend. flying around the world, speaking at conferences, and everywhere you go, you're just surrounded by people who know who you are and what you're doing and support and believe in what you're doing. It was a wild ride. And I lost sight of where we were, which was still a young, probably not completely competent, and still growing, learning startup. And we made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes. And yeah, I let my ego get the best of me. The truth is, I could have done better. The truth is, I could have been more focused. The truth is, I should have been more humble. And at the end of the day, the meme is the meme, because regardless of whether you do it intentionally or not, you will ultimately be humbled. And I lost sight of stay humble, stack sats. Therefore, the universe humbled me for me, and I'm back to stacking sats. Prolonged bear market and lack of startup CEO experience, those two things kind of collided together, and what ultimately happened is Pleb Lab ran out of enough money to keep going the way that it was. It's still going. It was just an untenable situation for me and Pleb Lab to continue working together. And so it was kind of an amicable split. It was, I had to transition my role and my responsibilities over to my co-founder, Carr, and I had to start looking for what made sense for me and my family moving forward. Fatherhood's been unbelievable. The one thing in my life that made everything significantly better was that little boy. I would come home after a super stressful day and he would just look at me and I would look at him, and the entire rest of the outside world would just melt away. I might not find myself currently where I thought I would find myself if you'd asked me 2 years ago. It's the best of a situation that is what it is. And yeah, I'm happy with it. I think I can do well at it, and I enjoy it enough that I think I can stay long enough to do well at it. So it works for now. The transition from Austin to Pennsylvania has been difficult. The transition from being a single guy living in a FedEx truck that was an off-grid tiny home to being a father has been difficult. And so, yeah, I'm content. Is contentment always easy? Not really, but I make it work. And I acknowledge that, you know, it's okay that you struggle. It's okay that I struggle. If I'm wrong about Bitcoin, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, community, people, these things are more important than Bitcoin. Without them, Bitcoin wouldn't work. Without them, Bitcoin wouldn't grow. And without them, Bitcoin doesn't matter. What is the point of Bitcoin if not to help us grow as a people? And so, if Bitcoin fails, do things become more challenging? Yes. Will it take longer to get where I believe we're going anyways? Yes. Will we get there? I believe so. Both the positive and the negatives are a positive. There are no negatives. There are just things that happen, and there is how you react. And so I look back at my time with ABC and with Pleb Lab fondly, and I look forward with my family, and I see hope, I see optimism, I'm excited, and I don't regret anything that has led me to this moment in time.